Yo, what's going on, guys? And of course, the Knicks all off season, since we knew Isaiah Hartenstein was going to leave, we've heard every possible big man worth mentioning attached to the Knicks. And this time, today we have an actual realistic guy, Nick Richards, who's under contract for this year. And I believe his contract has a year remaining on it. And I'm a big Nick Richards guy. If you guys have not been paying attention to Charlotte, and I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't, but Nick Richards is a guy who has been basically for the past 2 years a 7-7 guy who in about I guess this year he went up to 9 and basically 10-8 almost. The year before he was 8-6, but I was averaging it out the past 2 seasons that he was a 6-6 guy or a 7-7 guy with like a block a game while shooting, pretty efficiently from the field. I think this past year he was 69% from the field. So I thought he's somebody, if you were a team that had an established big like Mitchell Robinson and you're going to need a spot starter for when he's out, like he's expected to miss the start of the season, I've thought Nick Richards was a perfect guy. I was surprised that he was not really mentioned. And from my understanding is Nick Richards is an expiring contract. But he signed a 3-year extension. Actually, no, my apologies. He has 1 year left. So it's after this year, he has another year and they can extend him this offseason. So he's actually someone that the Knicks would definitely try to get. But this is a report from the new Knicks beat reporter for The Athletic, James L. Edwards III. He's a good guy. And he brought up that Isaiah Hartenstein's a huge guy, but they didn't want to pay that money. So one of the guys he brings up is Isaiah Stewart, and he basically says it would be Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride, and a first-round pick for Isaiah Stewart and 2 first-round picks. I don't think 2 future second-round picks. I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think they're going to trade Mitchell Robinson. I think they want somebody to be with Mitchell Robinson. That's the whole problem also with Walker Kessler is I think Walker Kessler is a finished product, and that's what I think they think. So their hope, I believe, is that they would just want to get him dumb cheap, but the Jazz are in this scenario would ask for Miles McBride and a 2025 first-round pick via Detroit. And if I'm the Knicks, I don't care for Walker Kessler that much. So right here, he says basically he doesn't know if he would do this deal. It's Miles McBride and Keita Bates-Diop for Nick Richards and a future second-round pick. First off, I don't think you need to trade Miles McBride to get yourself Mr. Nick Richards. I think draft pick compensation would be more than enough to get it. But the thing is you have to do a deal like this due to the financial restraints that the Knicks have to overcome to find a center depth without giving up a big contract. And finding a third center / a guy who's a second center a quality one like Richards is hard. And Richards is someone that, according to James L. Edwards III, is someone who the Knicks have had on their radar this offseason. He's a big guy, physical specimen with a good motor. He rebounds solid. He can protect the rim. He does everything efficiently and doesn't do too much. They're in a tight spot, but I think, as I've said, it's only $5 million. And I think personally, if you look at what the Knicks have in with their salaries, I would not be surprised if they could do some salary cap wizardry. And that's another thing about the Knicks is the Knicks are known to have like some of the best cap specialists in the entire league. Like, look how much money they spent in the past 2 years, and they're still only with the 7th highest payroll. That's impressive. Now, Precious Achiuwa came back on a 1-year deal, and I think they would keep Precious. So my assumption, this is where it does become hard, because would they give up? I think they would have to give up Jericho Sims at this point. I think they don't necessarily care for Jericho the same way that they used to. And if they were to get rid of my first option is, can they do this deal through Jericho? If it's straight up just Jericho, then I don't see a reason why they need to give up all these other set assets. I would rather just see them go ahead and just trade 2 second-round picks and Jericho Sims for Mr. Nick Richards. And I feel like financially that should work out. Trade the Hornets. And you also do Keita Bates G up. And then, as we've said, I'll do next year Boston or Memphis. Honestly, yeah. Next year's second rounder, and then a 2026 second rounder. And from my understanding, at least glancing at the cap, this should, it does not work. It actually does not work. And that is, the Knicks. 1 second. We don't know if it works or not, but we will in a second. So I forgot to add Nick Richards to the trade, and then it said this trade doesn't work because the Knicks aren't receiving anything in return. I'm like, well, Knicks are supposed to be receiving Nick Richards. Well, you know where we're at with that. So here you go. And you guys, again, Nick Richards 18 minutes, like to start, and then have Precious Achiuwa as his backup until Mitchell Robinson come back, and then you have Mitch Rob and Nick Richards as your thing, and then you can re-sign Nick Richards. And okay, the Knicks are unable to complete this trade. They can only take back, so they would actually have to do this trade is $253,000 too big. So that's the financial restraint. They can't even do it with Jericho Sims and Keita Bates G up, which makes this deal that much harder for them to figure out. As we said, I'm trying, and that's where I look at this roster and I'm like, I don't want to give up Miles McBride. And this would have to be a trade that I guess can't happen before the season. It would have to happen later. But if it were to happen later, could they package Keita Bates, G-Up, Jericho Sims, and campaign for Mr. Nick Richards? That's my question. As you'd think that, I know campaign, I think, is making just above the minimum. So if so, I think that's definitely a way that they could go out and get this done. And if they could, man, I think that's the move. So trade to the Hornets, Keita Bates, Cameron Payne. And this would have to, if this were the case, this means that they are going to have to end up waiting for, I think, the 60 days that is required of the contract of campaign that he signed. But in this case, Nick Richards is $5 million. And would they even be able to just throw in one of their smallest contracts, which would be Seth Curry? Okay, I'm gonna put up the first trade. So basically, if campaign, this trade would not be able to happen until after October 13th, is what we're finding out. So if they were to do it with campaign, it would have to be a trade that happens after October 13th. So that's what we got. Yeah. So basically, yes, they can trade Nick Richards, campaign, Keita Bates up for Mr. Nick Richards, which I think personally, great deal. And as I've said before, I think the biggest thing is trying to find out, what second round picks they would send out. As I think also I accidentally just had Dumb send second round picks. the Hornets. But I do think this is a good deal because Nick Richardson is not. Did I say Nick Richardson? Nick Richards is a good spot starter and a guy who definitely could, I think, be an asset for a team like the Knicks. And then because he already signed one extension and it was a 3-year extension, they can extend him this offseason. Which, if I were them, yeah. So if the trade were going to happen, it would happen before October. And I think this is going to be one to keep an eye out for as, yeah, I think the Knicks have improved. If the Knicks do this, they improve. That's a fact. I know that's me being like a bit like overzealous and thinking that, oh, like I'm going to be able to take advantage of this. But yeah, I think it's a really, really fortunate scenario if they are to get him. That's it. I'm done rambling, guys. Let me know your thoughts.